Hi there, YouTube friends. This is going to be a different kind of video. First off, I suggest you hold on to your headphones, kids, because it's about to get crazy up in here. This video is not safe for work. You should consider this your explicit language advisory. Today's subject matter is illicit, explicit, and totally over the top. Now, you might think that Jehovah's Witnesses, with their modest dress and grooming, rigid gender roles, and draconian rules about just about everything, are pretty vanilla when it comes to sex. But no, they do have heavy-duty restrictions on their sexuality, as you will see, but they hear a lot, and I mean a lot, of explicit sexual discussions at the meetings and in their literature. And this isn't in an adults-only context either, guys. Jehovah's Witness meetings are for the entire congregation, from infancy to the elderly. So if the Watchtower study is about masturbation, prostitution, and kink, you're just as likely as not to have a precocious 5-year-old answering a question about the depraved sexual practices of today's world. Or maybe the depraved sexual practices of the ancient world, or whatever. Jehovah's Witnesses get a unique blend of sexual repression and way too much information at the same time. They aren't allowed to do anything even remotely sexual, including fantasize and think, but they seem to talk about it in their literature and from the platform non-stop. They talk about sex like way too much. And it's not just in private training videos like that infamous leaked Bethel Pillowgate thing. No, they like their crazy down front. But don't let that fool you. Jehovah's Witnesses consider premarital or extramarital sex to be the absolute worst thing that you could possibly do. Honestly, I think my mother would have preferred if I had murdered someone in cold blood rather than commit fornication. Which brings us to today's topic: sex in the Watchtower publications. Now, since my life began in the 1970s, I'm going to start there, although rest assured that there are plenty of gems left to mine before then, if you happen to be interested. However, this is quite a rabbit hole we're going down, so get ready for a multi-part series because I've found a lot of crazy shit. While both homosexuality and bestiality are disgusting perversions, in the case of neither one is the marriage tie broken. It is broken only by acts that make an individual one flesh with a person of the opposite sex other than his or her legal marriage mate. So basically what this means is you can't get divorced if your husband beats you, squanders everything both of you make, and leaves you homeless, fucks another man, or even the family dog, or the neighbor's cow, or hell, even his own son. You can only get divorced if he fucks another female. Sorry, sisters. And guys, this goes for you too. Your wife has to have sex with another man in order for you to be free to remarry. Doesn't this seem a little backwards to you? Recently in the news was a court decision ruling that oral copulation by adults is no longer punishable by law in a certain state. Would such practice therefore be solely a matter for individual conscience if engaged in by a Christian couple within the marriage arrangement? Oh my. It is not the purpose of this magazine to discuss all the intimate aspects of marital relations. Whew, I'm glad to hear that. Wait. Why is there still a column of text here? Oh, they're talking about it anyway. Great. Nonetheless, practices like those involved in this court case have become quite common and have received considerable publicity. Even young children in certain schools are being informed of these things in sexual education courses. Blah, 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 the Apostle Paul, blah, blah, blah. The natural way for a married couple to have sexual relations is quite apparent from the very design given their respective organs by the Creator, and it should not be necessary to describe here how these organs complement each other in normal sexual copulation. Really? You sure? I mean, I thought the natural way to have sex was just to get naked and do whatever comes naturally. It doesn't like require an instruction manual or all this editorializing about what's normal and what's not. We believe that aside from those who have been indoctrinated with the view that in marriage anything goes. Wait, where is this indoctrination occurring? Does anybody know? The vast majority of persons would normally reject as repugnant the practice of oral copulation, as also anal copulation. The vast majority of what persons? Seriously? People who read the Watchtower? Because that's the only people who are going to think oral is repugnant. And if they do, they've obviously never tried it. I'm just saying. If these forms of intercourse are not contrary to nature, then what is? Sexual repression? That those practicing such acts do so by mutual consent as married persons would not thereby make these acts natural or not obscene. Are we being narrow or extreme in taking such a position? Yes. Yes, you are. But please go on. No. As seen by the fact that several states of the United States have for long had laws against precisely such practices, classifying them as forms of sodomy, even though those engaging in them are married. Well, in the state of Alabama, it's illegal to have an ice cream cone in your back pocket at any time. And in South Carolina, horses may not be kept in bathtubs, so you can kind of see the high standard of state laws, can't you? You were saying? Blah, blah, blah. Penetration of the male organ into the mouth or anus of another. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, my. However, since marriage is of divine origin, our conscientious stand on marital relations is not founded on or ruled by worldly views. Oh yeah, friends, we are so much better and morally superior to all those decaying worldly people. We would never even consider going downtown. Keep in mind that all of this was being printed and enforced in congregations while they were actively covering up pedophilia and child sexual abuse within the congregations. Fine upstanding moral superiority right there. It is not our purpose to attempt to draw a precise line as to where what is natural ends and what is unnatural begins. Well, that's a relief. Wait, there's more text there. Oh, they're going to draw a line now. Okay. But we believe that by meditating on Bible principles, a Christian should at least be able to discern what is grossly unnatural. I mean, at the very least, you should be able to see that you are a disgusting, perverted freak if you enjoy the occasional blowjob from your wife. In other areas, the Christian's individual conscience will have to guide, and this includes questions regarding caresses and love play prior to intercourse. But even here, the Christian who wants to produce the fruits of God's Holy Spirit will wisely avoid practices that approach or could easily lead one to fall into unnatural forms of copulation. Yeah, you actually did hear that right. If you caress your spouse prior to intercourse or engage in any type of love play, you could fall into unnatural copulation. My! I guess they're expected to just walk up to each other, shake hands, and then proceed with like standard missionary with little movement and no eye contact. What if certain married couples in the congregation in the past or even in recent times have engaged in practices such as those just described, not appreciating till now the gravity of the wrong? Then they can seek God's forgiveness in prayer and prove their sincere repentance by desisting from such gross, unnatural acts. Pop quiz, guys. What are we supposed to do if we have committed a sin? Yes, brothers and sisters, that's right. We're supposed to confess to the elders. Ew. It is certainly not the responsibility of elders or any others in a Christian congregation to search into the private lives of married couples. But they did. Nevertheless, if future cases of gross unnatural conduct, such as the practice of oral or anal copulation, are brought to their attention, The elders should act to try to correct the situation before further harm results, as they would do with any other serious wrong. Their concern is, of course, to try to help those who go astray and are caught in the snare of the devil. But if persons willfully show disrespect for Jehovah God's marital arrangements, then it becomes necessary to remove them from the congregation as dangerous leaven that could contaminate others. So, if they find out that a married couple in the congregation is having any fun whatsoever in the privacy of their own bedroom, they can be disfellowshipped. How would something like this be brought to the elders' attention? Because, they would have to confess it, right? What of Christian women married to unbelievers and whose mates insist on their sharing in such grossly unnatural acts? Does the apostle's statement that the wife does not exercise authority over her own body, but her husband does, give a wife the basis for submitting to these demands? Oh my. No, for such husbandly authority is only relative. God's authority remains always supreme. Oh my God. Okay, what about the long-suffering Jehovah's Witness brother who is married to a worldly woman? Can you imagine? Oh, honey, what are you doing? You can't give me head. I'm the head of the household. Now, the text continues to ramble on, but there is so much more to get to. And also, you should note that they suffered some pretty extreme heat for this policy in subsequent years, so they did back off a bit from it. But not for a while, as you'll see. Let's move on. Perhaps the change that most often is a source of disturbance for boys growing toward manhood is that involving the organs of procreation, the genitals. During puberty, these not only attain their full size, but also begin to function. The Bible refers to emissions of semen. If his parents have thoughtlessly failed to discuss the matter with him beforehand, a youth's first seminal emission may be an upsetting experience. What causes such emissions? A young man's body on reaching puberty begins to produce sperm cells and also a fluid that serves to transport these outside the body. More or less periodically, the body relieves itself of such sperm cells or semen, an emission taking place while the person sleeps and is dreaming. What does this all mean? It means that your body is now capable of fathering children. This is the Creator's arrangement and is to be exercised, of course, in His provided way by honorable marriage. Okay, I need to point out here that this was in the Watchtower magazine, which was studied during the Sunday meeting. Now, I'm not sure if this was a study article or not, but I remember some study articles with this same level of cringe when I was a Jehovah's Witness kid. Watchtower study articles were read aloud and then questions were asked, which the audience would then raise their hand to answer, and you're expected to at least try to comment at every meeting. And sometimes you had parents who were really overzealous and were very eager to apply every single question to their own lives. So they might give a comment about nocturnal emissions at home. Can you imagine being their son? Or someone's 5-year-old new precocious publisher might comment that the young man's able to be a daddy now. The cringe is very, very real. A point may be noted, however. While such emissions are normal, to some extent, you can control the frequency of their occurrence. What you think about, particularly your thoughts prior to going off to sleep, can affect this considerably. Actually, I don't think that's true, at all. If you let your thoughts dwell on sexual matters, this will likely reflect itself in your dreams and lead to frequent emissions, perhaps several in the course of a month. Oh my! By exercising self-control, you can turn your thoughts away from sensual things and thus go for a considerable period of time without having your sleep interrupted by such an emission and the measure of discomfort that naturally follows it. I don't understand why there would be discomfort. Oh, because you're naturally so repressed that any bodily function happening below your waist is excruciatingly embarrassing and guilt-ridden? Or is it just because you're slightly damp now? Incidentally, while the requirement of the Mosaic law that a man should bathe after any such emission is not enforced religiously for Christians, it is still good hygienic practice to wash oneself as soon as practical. Yeah, incidentally, take a bath, you filthy bastard. Oh my God, why did they even feel like they needed to say this? Don't they think their followers have any sense whatsoever? Clearly not. Let's move on. The next one is called breaking free of self-abuse. Why? How? It was in the Watchtower also in 1973. Now, what do they mean by self-abuse? Cutting? Self-injury? Well, of course not. They mean real self-abuse. Choking your chicken. Masturbation was once quietly discussed only in private circles as secret sin or solitary vice. Today, it is fast becoming a common household word. Dictionaries describe it as the act of rubbing one's genital organs until excitement is climaxed by orgasm, but without intercourse. The modern sexual revolution, with its new morality, is largely responsible for making the practice popular. No. It's a household word in Jehovah's Witness households. Normal people don't discuss masturbation at the dinner table as a general rule. It's still a private activity for the most part, as it should be. And thanks, Watchtower, for that extremely detailed definition. Also, I wouldn't call masturbation a popular practice so much as a biological function. I mean, even animals do it. I mean, people have been masturbating as long as people have existed. It's not new. Do you agree that because it is a very common thing, almost a universal practice, that this makes masturbation a natural, normal function of the body? Well, yeah. Lying and stealing are exceptionally common today, as is the use of tobacco. Yet you would not say that this makes them natural and proper, would you? Well, they're kind of comparing apples and tire irons here. For one thing, neither masturbation nor smoking really impacts another person. I guess to some extent there's a danger of secondhand smoke, but come on. Touching your own naughty bits is not the same as picking someone's pocket or committing perjury. The common cold is quite universal, but this certainly does not make it normal or natural, does it? Actually, yes it does. Bacteria and viruses that cause colds are part of nature, guys. It's completely normal and natural to catch a cold every now and then. Because masturbation is unnatural, granted, small children have little concept of the sexual relationship of male and female. Okay, I need you parents out there to back me up, because I can attest to the fact that one of the first things babies do is check out their crotch. Gender doesn't really matter here. They all go through several phases where their hands are constantly in their diapers. And you know what? It's not like infants are exposed to porn or given any sermons about the dangers of masturbation. It's just a thing that humans and animals do. It's an instinct. It's completely normal. No, I agree. You don't want your kid whipping it out in public or at the dinner table, but that's because it's inappropriate at those times, not because it's some sort of unnatural activity. But with adolescence comes an inner awareness that tells the male his satisfaction of sexual desire is to be found in the female, and vice versa. Masturbation, like homosexuality, ignores or bypasses that natural arrangement. It is one form of leaving the natural use of the female for one contrary to nature. With adolescence comes hormones that make teens horny, regardless of their sexual preference. And let's get one thing straight. Females are not here for your use, guys. We are not objects for your satisfaction. We are not tubes of toothpaste or hemorrhoid cream or spoons or forks. Contrary to Watchtower teaching here, we are human beings with our own desires, needs, attractions, and sexuality. This natural use of the female bullshit has got to stop. You know, I would much prefer a horny guy with no partner to masturbate to relieve the pressure than to go out and try to use some poor unsuspecting female to preserve the Christian idea of what's natural. Now later on, the same article goes into a description of wet dreams or nocturnal emissions again. But is not masturbation more effective and satisfying in relieving sexual tension than these nocturnal emissions? Yes. Yes, it is. No, for instead of a simple and immediate release of tension, the masturbator finds that his whole nervous system is thrown into a high state of excitement as tension is built up due to the self-stimulation. Yeah, that's why it's more effective in satisfying dimwits. Afterward, this may leave him with a feeling of nervous frustration and dissatisfaction. No, it doesn't. If he's an indoctrinated Jehovah's Witness, he might have a feeling of crushing guilt and impending doom, but that's the Watchtower's fault. And his parents. Yet he soon has a compelling desire to repeat the act. It is a vicious cycle that is hard to break and that gives no genuine satisfaction. Well, it would if he wasn't brainwashed. That masturbation is abnormal and unnatural is also indicated by the fact that abnormal, mentally deranged people are notorious masturbators. Somewhat similarly, the Bremerton Sun in Washington states that many mentally disturbed priests and nuns are chronic masturbators. Oh, look, a causal fallacy argument. I think I need some actual citations for this. What research studies have shown that mentally deranged people are constantly wanking? And even if they are, how is that relevant here? What does any of this have to do with priests and nuns? The scripture mentions that covetousness, which is idolatry, should be deadened. This would apply here, for the masturbator's affection is diverted away from the Creator and is bestowed upon a coveted object, in this case his genitals, which take on undue importance. This practice then could border on idolatry, as in the ancient practice of phallic worship so hated by God. Instead of being devoted whole-souled to Jehovah, the person can become a slave to his fleshly sexual impulses, desires, and appetite, and make these the object of his devotion. They are really reaching here. I've never met anyone who actually coveted their own penis or vagina. You don't actually need to covet something that's actually already yours and which cannot actually ever belong to anyone but you. It's attached, for Christ's sakes. And I've never actually met anyone who worships their own genitals either. I've met a few people who wanted others to worship their genitals, but only briefly and not as a substitute for religion. If one understands the cause, it is easier to implement the prevention and cure of a bad habit. Did you know, for example, that mothers and fathers who stroke the genitals of their fretful babies to keep them quiet are unwittingly encouraging them to become masturbators later on? What the ever-loving hell is going on here? Who does this? There is no way that this is actually a thing. Now, my mom used to talk about this all the time, and she claimed that it was a Latin cultural thing, but none of the Latinos that I have ever met even remotely considered this acceptable or normal in any way. Guys, this is child molesting they're talking about. And the only place I've ever come across this idea is right here in the Watchtower. I'm sure that my mom got this from Watchtower and is convinced that it's true because it came from the Watchtower. But y'all, I'd really rather my kid be a masturbator than this. Boys and girls may start to play with their private parts during puberty, and not receiving any counsel against this, the first thing they know they are hooked on the habit. And if some know nothing about self-abuse before entering high school, the chances are they will learn of it from either fellow students or the teachers themselves. Okay, first of all, boys and girls start playing with their private parts almost immediately upon exiting the womb. Also, I'm not sure how a child could make it all the way to high school without knowing about masturbation, especially if they're witnesses and have to read about and hear this stuff at meetings all the fucking time. Did Jehovah's Witnesses ever think that these articles and talks might actually create the very problems they're talking about? Also, I made it all the way through high school without ever having anyone, especially not a teacher, try to teach me how to masturbate. This is just so stupid. And guess what? We've only made it to 1973, y'all. There is so much more to cover here. So until next time, I'm Sister Fister, and this is crazy.